Ba, ba, ba. Hello all. I think we are nearly ready to go live. So as usual, if someone can just confirm you can hear me okay, and then we'll get started, I think. As usual during this, if you have any questions, if you pop them in the chat, I'll keep an eye on the chat and try and answer them as I'm going through. But hopefully the sound is working okay. I can see that the stream thing seems to be healthy enough. So we'll get on with it and do it. Let me just I'll go through the risk one just to explain what today is. We do these live streams quite regularly now, and we do various videos throughout the week on the YouTube channel, and we do these live streams once a week, once every couple of weeks. And I thought we'd do one after the payrolls. A bit of a surprise number for the payrolls. We'll talk about that. Then we'll catch up with what's been moving this week and what to look out for next week. I think this week we've already put videos out on silver, gold, and oil already this week. So there's been some interesting moves there. Someone's saying the sound is very low. Hopefully you can perhaps try putting the volume up on your end, or put the volume up on the slider at the bottom of the YouTube video. That might help, because I think most people say the sound is okay. So hopefully that's all right. So we'll do our quick look at the market since the payrolls. Then we'll have a look at everything really: stock indices, gold, oil, silver, a couple of FX pairs, and crypto. We'll have a look at crypto as well, because Bitcoin is going crazy, obviously. Before we get into that, let's just do the risk warning. This presentation is only for educational purposes. It does not contain and should not be construed as containing investment advice or an investment recommendation, or an offer of or solicitation for a transaction in any financial instrument. David Jones and Capital.com accept no responsibility for any use that may be made of these comments and any consequences that result. Spread bets and CFDs are complex instruments and come with a high risk of losing money rapidly due to leverage. 75% of retail investor accounts lose money when spread betting and or trading CFDs with this provider. You should consider whether you understand how spread bets work and whether you can afford to take the high risk of losing your money. Okay, we're doing a zero spread today. Is our special offer of the day from Capital.com. So if you're a client of ours, you can trade Euro US dollar, which might be an interesting market. You can trade Euro US dollar with zero spread until 6 o'clock this evening, UK time. So if you're a client, you can take advantage of that. If you're not a client, go to Capital.com. You can open an account fairly quickly, download our app from wherever you get your apps, and you can be trading and take advantage of this. Right, let's talk about the payrolls. So the payrolls came out an hour ago. So non-farm payrolls released normally the first Friday of every month. This US unemployment data. So if you look at, it's the change in the previous month, how many jobs were added or lost. So if we go back to April, you can see massive down number there. Almost 21 million jobs were lost in the US during April. Of course, no surprises due to the pandemic, the coronavirus. And since then, we've seen jobs climbing back up. But look at today's number, was a bit of a shock. I think the market was expecting about 70,000 plus 70,000 jobs to have been added. The number came in minus 140,000. It's the first negative number we've had since April. So that was the number for December. So a bit of a surprise there. I think we are seeing the US dollar under some pressure. We'll take a look at that on perhaps the jobs market being not quite as healthy as expected, or not recovering in the same way as expected. Perhaps concerns there that the new government, to Mr. Biden, will have to do more in terms of stimulus and support, and that will put pressure on the US dollar. We'll take a look at all of this, though, as we're going through. So just very quickly, we'll look at important dates for next week, then we'll talk about markets. So next week, there's quite a lot going on next week. 11th of January, Monday, Chinese inflation data, early hours in the morning. Tuesday, 12th of January, UK retail sales. It could be interesting. Christmas and January, clearly, always an important time for retailers. Strange times at the moment if you're watching and you're not in the UK. You know, England went back into a full lockdown in line with the rest of the UK, Wales, Northern Ireland and Scotland. So odd times for the UK economy. Wednesday, the 13th of January next week, industrial production from the EU, US inflation data. Thursday next week, US retail sales. Could be interesting. Friday, the 15th of January, China GDP and UK GDP. So a big week for data next week. Let's talk about what's been going on, though. Stock markets, as usual, all still positive. US stock markets at or near all-time highs. The DAX, German DAX, hit all-time highs this week. UK FTSE 100 at an 11-month high this week. Someone else has said something about the sound. Try sliding the sound volume up on the YouTube player, because I think most people are saying the sound is okay. I'm trying to shout, but hopefully that if you do that at your end, your sound will be better. Gold and silver. It's an interesting week for gold and silver. We did 2 videos this week. We did one on gold and one on silver. We saw gold rally back to a 2-month high, and someone said every time you put a gold video out, the price of gold drops, and it did drop really heavily yesterday. So we'll take a look at that in a second. Silver rallies to a 4-month high, and again, it's taken a bit of a knock. But I wonder how they're doing if the dollar's going to be weaker, because the weaker US dollar in recent weeks has helped both strengthen recently. So 2 interesting markets there. We will take a look at gold and silver in a second. Bitcoin, it's incredible, isn't it? This run in Bitcoin and Ethereum as well. Bitcoin, I don't know where it is now. We'll have a look in a second. $40,000 today, Bitcoin. More than doubled over the past month. So we'll take a look at that in a bit more detail. Clearly, this ruling for traders in the UK from the Financial Conduct Authority came in, I think, is it effective the 6th of January, wasn't it, that you can't trade cryptocurrencies using CFDs, contracts for differences, and spread bets. I do still hate Bitcoin, and it keeps going up. So I wondered what sort of impact that would have, and so far nothing. You know, the price has been absolutely incredible. I think I do have, we'll see the account in a minute, a trade on Ethereum running from a video we did last year, and it's one of the biggest winners at the moment. Absolutely crazy cryptos yet again. And crude oil trades above $50 a barrel, first time since February 2020. I did a video on crude oil right at the beginning of the week. We did a trade on crudes. We'll take a look at that. We had a surprise unilateral cut from Saudi Arabia, an extra 1 million barrels a day. So let's take a look at that. Foreign exchange, dollar index hits a fresh 33-month low. It's been a good week for the pound and the euro, hitting big levels. Let's have a look, though. Let's stop talking about it and take a look at it. What shall we start with? Let's start with the dollar index first of all. Let's just because I wondered what the dollar's response was to these payrolls that came out. Here we go. We can see some of the volatility. So they came out at 130. So this is where the number comes out for the payrolls, and we have seen it. It's a bit weaker. It's not that drastically weaker, the US dollar, but clearly what's happening with the dollar, affects the euro, the pound, gold, silver, these different markets. So I think, I thought it was worth starting with that. But I think it's interesting. The US dollar index has been so weak since March of this year. Spiked in March on the virus, as everyone saw the dollar as a safe haven, and then it sold off really quite sharply since then. But I think what's interesting, it's back down to the lows from 2018. So everyone feels like is really pessimistic about the US dollar at the moment. But I wonder if we're going to see a turnaround. I think it's a really interesting market to watch. But what should we do? Let's start off with the metals for a change. Let's take a look at gold. So I did a video on gold earlier this week. Let's take a look at the dailies. And I was really... So on our gold videos, and again, if you're watching this, if you don't subscribe to our YouTube channel, if you click on subscribe, that would be great. But we do put out 3 or 4 videos a week, slightly more relaxed look at markets, sort of 10 to 15 minutes each video. We've got this 2-year uptrend in gold going back to August 2018. Well, 2.5 years now. We know the price accelerated from March last year, fresh all-time highs for gold in August, and it had just been drifting really since August until really the end of last year, beginning of this. So I did a video this week wondering, was the correction for gold, was the slide in gold over, and really looking for a bounce. And I put an order in to buy at 19.20. Let's pick up on the hourly charts. It's still pretty weak. You know, we had that sell-off yesterday, or a couple of days ago, sorry. And it looked like it was holding above the trend line. If I just move that forward, it looked like that was just a normal move back to the trend line. But today, bang, you know, we've seen it really come off again. I have to say, I do still think this is a buying opportunity in gold for a sort of short to medium term trade. I think in the video this week, you know, I think I was talking about 1850. I think we got lots of support running from 1850 through to about 1870. So whilst it's definitely had a big move down this week, clearly the price has moved lower by about $80 since Wednesday's high up here at 1960. It's a big move down, but I think it's going to be really interesting next week, gold, to see, you know, this old area from the second half of December. We saw plenty of support from 1850 to 1870. Do we see the buyers come back in? So I think that's a really interesting market to watch. Personally, I've been looking to be a buyer. The trade I've got at the moment is slightly underwater, or it's 150 quid underwater on gold at the moment. So bought in at 19.20 with a stop at 18.50. So we'll see. We'll see how that one turns out. But yeah, still weak at the moment, but interesting next week to see if the old support levels hold. But taking a bit of a knock the last couple of days. Silver, I did a silver video again. The same sort of thing really. We saw 7-year highs for silver in August, up at just shy of $30 an ounce, and we'd had this recovery going on since late November, and I had an order in to buy. I think $26.50 an ounce was the order to buy. Again, like gold, I mean, it's not, for me, you know, that recovery in silver from late November is still going. And it makes for an interesting setup for next week. It traded down to, looks like $26 an ounce this morning. We have got lots of support from about 25 upwards, 25 to 26. So for me, I mean, I've got a couple of trades on at the moment on silver. Well, I'm up. I've got an older trade running from wherever down here, 21st of September. And these more later trades are down about 11 quid from this week. I'm up overall on silver, but I probably wouldn't be a buyer today. But I think, again, it's an interesting one for next week, perhaps when the dust settles a bit after this payrolls excitement today, to see if we stabilise again in this 25 to 26 area. You know, so for me, that trend is still up, higher highs, higher lows, all of that. So I'm still be looking for a buying opportunity in silver next week. I think if it loses $25, I think that the risk is that recovery is well and truly over, and we start looking at maybe $22 again. So some interesting moves in the metals over the last couple of days, but let's see what happens early next week. Now, crude oil, I think if this is a great example where don't expect markets to be logical. You know, if we just remind ourselves what happens on crude, you know, it went down. This is the cash price for West Texas crude. So it went down in April to about $10 a barrel. And of course, famously, the May contract went negative. We'd had this recovery, this massive move in crude since November. Look at the November lows. November lows trades below $34. And at the moment, we're sitting at, $51 and slightly more. So the price of crude has moved 50% higher in about less than 2.5 months. Okay, so we've seen a big move in crude oil. We did have those surprise cuts from Saudi Arabia this week. I think the OPEC group of countries agreed to keep a lid overall on production, not to arrange it too much. We have the virus coming back around the world, you know, the threat to the economy, but the price of crude still goes up, you know. So again, there's a trade from this week, from the video this week on crude. I can't remember where it was. So buying in at $48.47. So we're up about £250 on that trade. And it's carried on higher. So for now, at the moment, you can't argue with the trend in crude. You know, we're now at the highest levels. We've got to go back all the way back to, well, February 2020. So we are at 10-month highs on crude oil. Incredible performance. You know, for me, I'd adjust that trend line slightly, and I'd be looking at that for crude. Perhaps the opportunity next week, if we get a bit of a wobble next week in the price of crude, you know, do we get knocked back to the lows or near the lows from a couple of days ago at $47, $50, $48, that sort of level? But for now, it's a really strong market. The price of crude oil. I would not want to be short crude oil when it's moving like this. So happy to sit with it and try and run this trend higher. When it comes to targets for crude, I think the next target for me is here on the chart. Sort of third week of February, around $54, $54.50. I think is my next target for crude oil. So we'll see. Let's see how that one turns out. Let's take a look at Bitcoin. I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? I remember looking at this over Christmas and seeing it at 33,000 and think, well, Bitcoin's gone absolutely crazy again. And so you bought it at Christmas and you'd be up 20%, 25%. Absolutely phenomenal trend on Bitcoin. We've done a few trades in it in the past. I think that the last trade I did on Bitcoin on this account, that this is the account that we use for all the videos, was a buy when it broke through 22,000, 20,000 last time round and got taken out somewhere on the way up. But look at that trend. I mean, as crazy as I may think it is, the market still goes higher. So it's doubled since the 15th of December. So the 15th, 16th of December was when it first went through 20,000. And clearly we've doubled since then. I mean, the volatility is clearly one thing to bear in mind. If we look at the 3rd of January, it was 34,500. Then it was 28,000 less than a day later. So it moved, 20% swing there. So for me, it is probably too volatile a market for me to trade. But you can't argue with that trend. We sort of breaks out, goes again, sells off. We have a breakout and off we go. And we've just had, I suppose, the latest breakout in the last few hours this morning when it broke above yesterday's high. So if I was a buyer of Bitcoin now, where's my stop going to go? I can't buy it anyway, of course, as a UK trader trading with an FCA company. But if I was a buyer now, my stop would go the other side of 36,000, which was these lows. It's only the lows over the last couple of days, of course, but the lows at 36,000. So that's still a $5,000 stop on Bitcoin. But given the volatility, you've got to give it room to move around. But absolutely phenomenal move on Bitcoin. So let's see where it is, and because of course it trades over the weekend, so it never stops, that one. So but still strong. You cannot argue with that strength. And as someone says, I wonder how high Bitcoin will go. I'm exactly the same. I mean, it's just unstoppable at the moment. Let's talk about stock markets though. So we look at stock markets. We look at copper as well, actually, and we look at some of the currencies. So let's look at the S&P. This is another market where it's not quite the same volatility as Bitcoin, but you can't argue with that strength in stock markets at the moment. Off the March lows, that recovery trend yesterday, fresh all-time highs again in stock markets, and again today. So again, we've had a breakout over the last couple of days in the S&P, pushing above the highs from the end of last year. Let me flip it over to a chart. I think I've got quite a few trades running on this account from the videos we do. I think there is an S&P trade in there from the 17th of December. So there's a trade running on the S&P. I think what was that sell-off for? I can't remember. It wasn't the riots we saw in the US. I can't remember what it was, but here it is on the hourly chart, and you can see the market now. Just again, still stronger overnight. For the S&P, I'd want to be a buyer on dips. If we did see a deeper sell-off, we have all this support on the S&P. 30th of November lows around 3,600. 21st of December lows came down beginning of the year to 3660. and it's rallied. So for me, I'm a big fan of keeping it simple when it comes to charts, and I'm a big fan of just looking at simple support and resistance. We do see these levels play out, but this week we've seen a great trend off the 4th of Jan lows for the S&P. I would guess we're going to see a strong finish for it today. I would still be a buyer on dips when it came to stock markets. Clearly nothing today is financial advice. No one's got a crystal ball, but you can't argue with that sort of strength that we're seeing in markets. If we take a look at the DAX is interesting. So the German market, the DAX, after being, quite the underperformer and getting really hard hit in November, the DAX, this week has moved out to all-time highs. It's quite interesting. The DAX, the German market, got as high as 13.6 in 2018, got as high as about 13.8 in February last year, and then the virus kicked in, and it's got back up to it and has broken out. So we are, even as we speak, we are at the highest ever for the German market. So it does suggest to me, and Japan as well actually, we could well see another run higher for stocks, medium term. I mean, we'll see how it works, but we are seeing a lot of strength in all these stock markets at the beginning of the year. Let's take a look at, there's the Japanese market, so the Nikkei. So again, the highest today, I don't know if we don't go back far enough, but multi-year high again to the Nikkei. So crazy markets, but very strong. So let's have a look at currencies. I've talked about these trades in the past. We have got trades. If I scroll down, right down here to the bottom, you can see right here we've got a euro. Euro's our biggest profit at the moment. So the euro, I've got Ethereum trade running in there. It's up 1,600, but euro is up 2,500, and sterling, pound against dollar, is up 770. And some of these euro trades have been in for a long time: May, July, and December. So let's take a look at the FX pairs. So here's the euro. Let's just flip this out to a daily chart. Let's not worry about the RSI, and let's just get rid of the moving average as well for now. We saw a really strong finish to last year for the euro against the dollar, pushed up to its best levels since April 2018. So 30-month high on the euro. A bit of weakness today, but for me, my strategy for the euro recently, over recent weeks, has been buying dips. So for, even though we've come off the last couple of days for the euro, I think, like some of the precious metals, it's a really interesting market going into next week. Because we've had one day or a couple of days of big sell-offs where the market's gone from 123.40 to 122. So we've seen 140, 150 point move in the euro. But that trend, which is not the best drawn trend, we've pushed below that trend from the beginning of November. So that's a 2-month plus trend at the moment. But we've still got higher highs and higher lows. We've got lots of support for the euro. Short-term support from New Year's Eve at 122. Bigger support out here, 121. Then down here at 120.50. So we've got lots of support basically for the euro. So for me, if we saw it under more pressure from here, I'd be looking for the bounce, waiting for a bit of strength to come in and looking to buy. So for me, I still think we will see the euro push back up higher from here. The question is just how much further it goes down before it happens. So what's that? Someone's spamming some stuff on the chat. Hold on a sec. Let me just sort that out. And the pound against the dollar. I mean, clearly we've had the Brexit agreement deal done at the end of last year. I don't think that was a surprise in the end that a deal was going to be done. This is the move in the pound over the last 6 to 8 months or so. So again, pushed up to its best levels since 2018, the beginning of the year. I did another trade on the pound this week. Actually, I bought in this week at 34.80. I think on the pound, it's just sort of flipping around a bit now. But the pound, like the euro, the trend for the last couple of months is still up. So whilst we might have a bit of day-to-day excitement, short-term sell-offs, from a medium-term swing trading point of view, I'd be looking to see if this market hooked higher and went back up. So I think it's interesting. the volatility, and we are seeing a lot of volatility just at the moment. We saw it push up after the payrolls, and it's come right back down to where it was before the payrolls were announced. So we saw a 60 point move on the pound against the dollar. So we saw a bit of volatility there, but we're back now to where we were before the payrolls came out. So we'll see. But I still think a weakness in the pound and the euro is buying opportunities for now, because those recent trends are still up. Someone saying the floor on gold has disappeared. Oh, it has, hasn't it? Look at that. That's an interesting market to watch this afternoon, gold. It really has taken an absolute knock, hasn't it? So what's going to happen down here? 1850. We are really running right into support now. So let's see. Let's see if we see then any buyers come back in. I have to say, and again, I haven't got a crystal ball. I would be tempted to see if we get some strength and look to be a buyer with stops, perhaps the other side at 1850. That's where my stop is at the moment. So if it goes much lower, I'll get stopped out. But let's see. Let's see what happens. And the other market I wanted to talk about is copper. I've talked about this a bit in the past, actually, but I think it's good to introduce a market that we don't normally talk about. Copper's had a great run. So I've mentioned in the past, I've got a few trades running on my own account in copper. Great run off the lows. And just yesterday, just overnight, copper pushed out briefly to its best levels since, we've got to go back to 2013. So we had nearly an 8-year high on copper overnight. So it's a really interesting market. It's reversed quite a bit today. So for fans of candlesticks, we do have something of a bearish engulfing going on today in the price of copper. But I think that's another interesting market. So, and I think that's it really. I think we did a very quick recap of what's going on. There's an awful lot to look at next week. I think for the rest of the day, gold's interesting because it's taken such a whack over the last few days. It's now down, $100 off those highs from the 6th of January, and really looking to see if this old support holds. So I think that's the really interesting market to watch for the rest of today. Stock markets are interesting. Let's have a look at the NASDAQ. We didn't look at the NASDAQ. Stock markets are interesting because they're still strong and they're moving out yet again to fresh all-time highs. You can't argue with the trend in stock markets. Bitcoin, just because it is so absolutely crazy, and broke out again today above 40,000. You can't argue with the strength in that one. But of course, if you're in it, you have to be prepared to ride big swings against yourself to see what happens. So that's an interesting one. And crude oil, because we are up at a 10-month high in crude oil. Despite the doom and gloom about the economy going into this year, the price of crude oil continues higher. So we'll see. So it's a really interesting end to the week. Those payroll numbers were much worse than expected, coming in at minus whatever it was in the end, minus 140,000. So the first minus number we've had since April. But loads to watch with markets, and as usual, next week we'll be back. I'll be back on Monday doing natural gas. Let's take a look at natural gas. Do you know, I've got quite frustrated by natural gas again recently. I was trying to buy this in natural gas in between Christmas and New Year, and I thought I'll leave it because it's Christmas and New Year. I do think I want to be a buyer of natural gas. I haven't got a trade on at the moment, but because it's come back to its trend since June, it's 6-7 month trend now, it's sort of faffing around, plenty of volatility as usual. I'm going to sit on my hands till next week and see. I still want to be a buyer and see if we get it drift back to 240 on natural gas. So and I'd have a stop probably the other side of 220 on gas. But we might do, there's never that much interest when we do the natural gas videos on YouTube. So I think it's not, and I know it's not a widely traded product, but it's a really interesting one. So for me, I still want to buy natural gas. So let's see what happens next week. But for today, we launched spread betting as well, just so you know. So go to Capital.com to find out more about the platform I've been using today. And if you're UK or Ireland, you can trade using spread betting with us as well. So of course, it's all free. Go and try it out. Try a demo account or download the app to try it out. If you've got any questions about this, go to our website, Capital.com. You can drop me an email. Clearly, we can't do financial advice, but I think there's I've highlighted, hopefully lots of interesting markets to watch over the next week, and we'll be back with our 3 or 4 videos this week. But any questions, drop me an email, david.jones@capital.com. You can follow me on Twitter @JonesTheMarkets, and I do the occasional tweet. But I think it's a really interesting end to the week across all sorts of markets this week. What's gold doing? Is it still getting hit? Let's see what happens. But it's a really interesting week, so it does bode well for plenty of volatility. I think this week. So we'll see. I covered gold. Someone keeps typing gold. If you rewind it, once this video is finished, you can rewind it and go back and watch gold. It's one of the first markets we looked at. But I think loads to watch next week. Like I say, any questions, drop me an email. Go to Capital.com to download our app, try out our demo account. You get access to all of these different markets that we've looked at today. But we'll leave things there. Have a good weekend. Thanks for coming along. If you're not subscribed, subscribe to us on YouTube for the regular videos that we put out. Thanks for all the gold comments at the end. And I hope, I think next week's going to be a really interesting week. So as usual, I think it's important to manage the risk, not go crazy. And I think we could have some really volatile markets next week, looking at what's happening today. But we'll leave things there. Okay, so I will see you all again on the next live stream that we do very shortly.